Welcome back, everyone. Back with another YouTube video. Today, I'm joined by Matt Santangelo, colleague, a friend of mine. Thank you very much for joining, Matt. We're talking about Tijjani Reijnders possibly joining Man City, what kind of player Man City will be getting, and all these things. So, Matt, thanks for joining me again.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to collaborate with you guys and get to speak on Tijjani and all things Calcio. So it's a pleasure to be on.
So we start with the latest update from Sky Sport Italia. Reporter Pepe Di Stefano defined the talks between Man City and Milan as at an advanced stage, and many sources report that City want the deal done before the start of the Club World Cup. They will have an extra transfer window with the other Club World Cup, with the other teams participating in the tournament for new signings, and in this window they want to announce Reijnders. Of course, is no easy deal in one way because Reijnders has just extended his contract with Milan, but we know Milan won't be getting in any European competition, which means money shortage in terms of prize money from European competition. So it's a transfer that financially could make sense for Milan, but technically it would be a big blow because of what we've seen this season. And just introduce us the player a little bit, Matt.
Yeah, so Tijjani Reijnders, of course, was acquired by Milan 2 seasons ago or 2 summers ago. In that same summer, which was a summer of transition for Milan. Obviously, we knew of the big dismissal of Paolo Maldini. Mazzara followed him out the door, and of course, the sale of Sandro Tonali to fund what was sold as a sort of revolution that was needed. Right, there were pieces in place for Milan to continue to try to build off that Scudetto win and the successive Champions League qualifications. So they saw that Sandro Tonali was the one that garnered probably the most interest, that they feel, in the short term can probably be the one that gets them the immediate money to fund that revolution. And part of the abundance of names that came in that summer was Tijjani Reijnders, and probably next to Christian Pulisic has been the two crown acquisitions under this new regime, right? Which has obviously come under intense scrutiny and for many reasons, right? But I think when Milan bought Tijjani Reijnders from Alkmaar in the Dutch division, I think that people were kind of uncertain about what type of player he was, right? He came in at 23, 24. People looked at the fee, which was in the low 20s to mid 2020s. So that's kind of the familiar territory for this new operation or new regime to acquire players under. And they really weren't sure what type of player he was, because you see a player at that age, why hasn't he made the move already, right? Things happen very quickly in the sport. And they saw Tijjani and they looked at the qualities and they said, okay, quickly they realized he's not a like-for-like replacement for Sandro Tonali. I think that you look at what Tonali's produced for the Italian national team in his couple seasons at Newcastle and, of course, at Milan. He's a player that brings a lot of high defensive metrics. He's a high-performing, high-motor midfielder that is ripe and ready to go and ready to be a cornerstone in your midfield. So when they brought Tijjani, they saw a lot of technical traits, a lot of technical qualities that they liked and that fans liked, but they didn't see in that first season the immediate successes of that. He had some rawness in front of goal. He had the great work rate. He is amongst the past couple seasons Milan's single outfield player that carries or covers the most distance, in this team. So I think it speaks to the fact that this is a worker. This is someone that box to box will get up forward. He will get to the edge of the box. He will be someone that those wingers can cut those balls across, and he will be able to get quite a few chances in front of goal. And in that first season, we saw him get into those pockets, but not finish. Whereas this season, he's erupted in a big way. He's done all the technical things from a passing standpoint, from a creation standpoint, all those sorts of things that I just mentioned, but he's added that goal contribution element to his game, which is obviously something that I think City is looking for in their own revolution, right? You have Kevin de Bruyne, they've had players leave in recent years as well. So they're at the end of their cycle, and they're kind of in a transition now. And they view a player like Tijjani Reijnders, who, while may not bring the defensive element that maybe City needs or that Milan were lacking, he is a player that if you put the right profiles around him and in a midfield 3 or midfield 4, He is that runner. He is that player that is going to progress play. He's super technical, press resistant, all those sorts of boxes that you really look for, he provides. On top of that, again, as I mentioned, this year he's added a goal element to it. He's been amongst, if not the best producer on a goal contribution standpoint, players in his department. So I think that City would be getting a great replacement, if you want to call it a Kevin de Bruyne replacement, in the Dutchman.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you mentioned. I mean, when Reijnders arrived at Milan, it was still not clear what sort of contribution he would have get, and this season really showed everything that he can do. He can, I mean, the evolution that he's had in the last season has been quite remarkable. He played under Stefano Pioli last season, and this season under Paulo Fonseca, and then Sergio Quintessan the second part of the campaign. But Matt, what do you think was the biggest turning point this season? Is it just a matter of knowing the league more, or there was a tactical tweak, something that changed on the pitch for Reijnders, or is it just the natural way with which he adapted to the league and then he showed he fulfilled his full potential here?
So I think it's very interesting, right? Because, amidst all the turmoil and uncertainty and turbulence surrounding this team, having 3 coaches in the span of a year, it's crazy to think that a player like this, who has only been in the league for a couple of years, took such an immediate rise and elevation in his game. And I think it's not very easy to do that at this level, let alone in this league, which tactically can be very humbling, right? For players who, otherwise maybe succeeded in a division outside of Italy, and then they come here and they think they're going to replicate that sort of success as whether it be a goal scorer or having the time and space on the ball or being able to find those lanes and avenues to create things and make things happen. But the fact that he was able to do it in his second year, I think is more so down to the fact that in this second year, he's been casted as more of a prominent core player. I think in that first year, to what you just mentioned, Lorenzo, feeling out the league, getting adjusted tactically. There's a lot of things that go into a transfer. Culturally, how do things play out? You're adjusting there, your family, languages, understanding, the style of the league, and doing it in real time. Because he had a good summer preseason, if you recall, and those listening and watching have recalled. But then it's different to do that in real time speed, where the games are high leverage and it matters most. And I think the one thing too that we've seen in this second year versus the first year is he wasn't as timid. I think this was a player that understood that he needed to take a step forward for this project, and he needed to do a little bit more heavy lifting this year because, in recent years, they lost a key cornerstone in Benacer due to drop and play or injury, Kessie, Tonali, and he's coming into this with really just him and Fofana, and he's being asked to carry that burden as not just someone who is technical, can progress play and make plays and things happen, but be a goal scorer. Because I think that in truth, you look at the way this team is set up, they really weren't getting goal production from the midfield over the past couple years. So the fact that they were able to not have to rely so heavily on Rafa and Pulisic to be those producers, and they can get a different element in Tijjani, who again making those runs late into the box, linking play, pushing forward. They in certain aspects of the season and what we saw in the big games like the Real Madrid game and some of the derbies against Inter was, I think Tijjani seized the moment. He stepped up and he wanted that responsibility. So I think that if City fans are looking at this and thinking, well, Milan's a City, can he fill in what Pep is wanting him to do? The pressure of playing in the Premier League for a team that is trying to compete with for every trophy every year. I think the answer is yes. I think he answered a lot of those questions in the second year. So I think it should give City fans that sort of reassurance that they're going to get a player that at 26 has that abundance of experience in multiple leagues, playing at a high level, playing in the Champions League, and ultimately being burdened with the responsibility of controlling an entire midfield, which he did a lot this year.
And all these things that we said about Reijnders on the pitch, I think they're perfectly matched for Manchester City if they do sign Reijnders, of course, in terms of financials as well, because we've heard about a lot of transfer fees from media here in Italy. For sure, it's a deal that is not going to be cheaper than 70 million euros. So the initial fee was 75, then Somebody suggests that it could go even higher to around 90 if Real Madrid are involved in the race as well. But at this stage, it seems that Man City are leading the race for Tijjani Reijnders. And he's a player that, strangely, extended his contract with Milan just a few months ago, and he did it until 2030. Now, this is a contract that would be deposited only at the start of 2025-26. But practically, Reijnders has already signed a new contract, and the new Milan salary from the 2025-26 campaign should be 3.5 million per year, which, if you consider, the wage bill at Man City and the fees that they pay in salaries for all of the players, and especially a legend like Kevin de Bruyne, who will leave at the end of the season, you really have the feeling that they're doing a great piece of business here, because regardless of the high fee, the salary is 100% more than in line, I would say, with Premier League salaries, more than in line.
For sure. I think that, when you throw all those factors in play, you look at the fact that what City are trying to accomplish now is they don't really want to be in the market for like a young player that needs developing. They need someone that they can throw in there right away to keep this thing pushing and not really sort of infringe on what else they need to do. Because I think that for all the riches and success that City have had and accumulated over the years, they're still a team that has that ambition. They're looking around and seeing Liverpool. They're seeing what Chelsea are doing. They're seeing what their competitors are doing. And they understand that they need to get players that give them that chance to compete next year for everything, to get back right on track, because they're still even jockeying for a top 4 spot. So this hasn't been an easy season for Pep and City, but I think the fact that they're so aggressive after Tijjani and Milan are still willing to sell all those factors with the contract, the wages. Truthfully, Lorenzo, the wage bill and the wage structure in Italy. 3.5 is paid pretty well amongst his contemporaries, but relative to some of the other contracts you've seen, not even just at Milan, but other clubs, he's still underpaid, even though he's going to double his salary in this new deal. So I think it speaks to the fact that this was a player that committed long-term to a rather uncertain Milan project at a fraction of what he would go for and earn in the open market. So make no mistake about it, even if he doubled his salary as what is reported for his new contract with Milan, he's still going to be paid quite handsomely, and in my opinion, probably a little bit undervalued relative to what we've seen the wages kind of circle about in the Premier League.
And talking about what we've seen this season, I want to share with you some stats from De Bruyne and Reijnders this season, of course, for De Bruyne in the Premier League and for Reijnders in Serie A. So let me share this with you, because it's pretty interesting, because there are some stats. Of course, it was a very difficult season for De Bruyne and Man City, on and off the pitch, not many games played. It was a proper final season for De Bruyne. It ended with lack of trophies as well, but of course the career that he's had at Man City, it's something that not many players can claim or can even dream to have. That being said, I want to share with you stats for goals, 4 goals against 10 scored by Reijnders in Serie A, and even expected goals. I mean, he scored more goals than those expected, which means the finishing from Reijnders was really, really good, because he got 6.63 expected goals, but he actually scored 10 goals, which means his shooting has been really pretty good this season. And the passing accuracy from Reijnders is not, in these stats, is not as good as De Bruyne, but there is a stat on pass accuracy, and Reijnders has it higher than De Bruyne this season. But regardless of that, 7 assists for De Bruyne and 4 for Reijnders in Serie A, which means 0.3 assists per game for De Bruyne and 0.1 for Reijnders. But look at these as well. Long ball passing accuracy, 72, nearly 73% for Reijnders against De Bruyne, who's not even around 70%. And the defending stats, of course, we're still not talking about a holding midfielder, because he's a player from which you would expect goals and assists and contribution in the final third. But still, he's proved to be a little bit more consistent than De Bruyne. You can see the defending stats in here. The other stats that I was telling you about Reijnders, also from SofaScore, it's because those are really, really good, and in some of these even better than De Bruyne. So we got accurate passes 89%, accuracy in his own half 94%, in the opposition half 84%, and the long ball accuracy I've already told you. So I mean, numbers that in some ways are even better than those of De Bruyne this season, even in terms of passing accuracy. In some stats, I think it says a lot about the season that the Reijnders has had at Milan.
Absolutely, and I think that I we can.
But in this case, they do.
Yeah, right. I don't think that there's no substitute for what we see with the eyes. I think that that's obviously what you can tell. And I mean, I think if you watched even a couple games from Tijjani Reijnders, you can see that this is a class player. This is a player that is beyond the numbers that you provided, which I think are incredibly supportive of what you have been seeing this entire conversation. He's a smart player, and I think that the defensive metrics, to your point, Lorenzo, the fact that he isn't really someone that is kind of categorized as like a defensive stopper, someone that you would sit in front of the defense and be that sort of holding presence. This is a player that maybe due to the dysfunctional situation at Milan had really been asked to do a lot more than maybe what he should have been required to do. In a more cohesive, more stabilized team and midfield, I think that this player, you might not see the same production from a defensive standpoint, because I think naturally you look at City's organization, you look at the defensive personnel that City have. He's going to have more coverage. And I think that those numbers that maybe he kind of falls short in, that maybe City fans are looking at and saying, well, we actually need this. So if we're getting a drop off in this, even on a down year, from De Bruyne, that maybe gives him some pause and some cause for concern. I don't see that. I see a player that is in a system like Pep is going to offer and afford him. They want to play quick. They want to play sharp passes, ball to the foot. And they want to progress play. So with all that being said, I think that Tijjani Reijnders is going to be a player that does have the propensity and capability to do even better and build upon what we are seeing here. So I think that from a coverage standpoint, from a running standpoint, and a work rate standpoint, all those sorts of things are going to really show pretty quickly in Pep's system, which frankly they have to if you're going to be someone that is replacing Kevin de Bruyne.
Yeah, look at the heat map as well. I mean, the Kevin de Bruyne has been, like, these are referring to Premier League season and Serie A season again, very close to the attacking box for Man City. Almost an attacking midfielder. Reijnders has been more like there's a bit of red also behind the halfway line. It's proved to be really complete, and the numbers that he's had. I mean, we just see 10 goals and 4 assists in Serie A without not getting, on average, anywhere near where De Bruyne is in the attacking half for Milan. So let's see, maybe one will play in the Premier League, Reijnders, and one will come to Serie A playing for Napoli, because these are the rumors as well. But on paper, it makes sense for Man City, especially before the start of the Club World Cup, which, if Reijnders makes the move, he could he would meet Juventus straight away, because they are in the same Club World Cup group, Juventus and Man City. And let's see. I mean, it would be just as exciting to see De Bruyne in Serie A, to be fair, because what he did at Man City has been absolutely remarkable. But Reijnders feels like a appropriate fit for Man City if they let De Bruyne go. And the rumors about Real Madrid are different. There is also a star leaving Real Madrid. In this case, is Luka Modric. If he goes to Madrid and replaces Modric, then it's something different again. But it's still something that I think Reijnders can do. So something, I wouldn't say like a deep line playmaker, but something pretty similar, maybe a modern way of covering that kind of role. But it would be, I think, more a central midfielder than a box-to-box and perhaps attacking midfielder as well sometimes for Man City.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're speaking on what Real Madrid could look for in Tijjani, assuming they're able to hijack this deal, which by all accounts it looks like it's going to be very difficult because
Yes.
City seemed like they're in an advanced stage, according to multiple reports. They seem like they've more or less set out the framework of a deal, 70 plus with bonuses. So they're coming after him, and they're coming after him hard for good reason. But I think if you're speaking as to what he can offer Real Madrid, which again, like they saw it firsthand, right? In that match, that was one of Milan's best matches of the season under Paulo Fonseca and under two coaches, and Sergio Conceição as well. Is
They're unbeaten against Inter and beat Real Madrid in Madrid and
yeah,
finished it with
I mean, this
it drives me mad really out of this word.
Yeah, it was a tactical masterclass for Milan, but he looked at even the goal that Tijjani scored, a lot of his involvement in that game. I mean, again, I think for all the criticism that management has gotten and Moncada, the chief scout turned to a more prominent director at the club, have gotten for how things have played out with the squad build, Tijjani was a find. And I think when you saw that deal happen at 20 to 25 million, you're looking at it and you're like, if this player is so talented, why haven't other teams can't come in for him? And we found out, afterwards, Barcelona raised. So when you have Barca interested in your signature, you have Real Madrid now and Man City. I think it speaks to the fact that Milan did get it right here. I think it's just unfortunate because I think that this is a player that, was brought in during that one summer where he wasn't a like for like, as I mentioned, for Tonali, and they needed to put more players around Tijjani. Now he's leaving, and there's reports of other midfielders coming in that also aren't like for like profile comparisons to Tijjani. And I'm talking about Samuel Ricci, right? So I think regardless, if Tijjani goes to one of the two of these landing spots, I think you're getting a fine midfielder, and again, someone that is really not in that sort of development stage. I think he's tailor-made, ready to go and ready to contribute at a high level for you.
Matt, thank you very much for joining me for this deep dive on Tijjani Reijnders. Let's see how the deal will end up. But as you said, it's quite likely that he'll be going to Man City because the rumors are quite strong in recent hours, and it's a deal that makes sense for both of us, for both of the teams at this stage of the year. And this was all from me as well. I'll be back on Monday with a video on the whole Serie A campaign review, title winner, teams qualified for Champions League, relegated, all about Serie A. So I'll be coming soon. Meantime, thank you very much. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Speak soon.